I'm David Hall. Today's topic is beaming. Now, it takes a certain sort to be interested in beaming. And it won't surprise you at all to know that I am that sort of person. All the niceties of how long stems should be and which notes should be beamed together and whether things should go up and down. It's fascinating stuff, the details of notation. Now, here are two ordinary notes, a crotchet and a minim. The first thing to note is that the stems should be 3 spaces long, so the equivalent of 3 spaces of the stave. The next thing, which you've probably already noticed but you may not have done, is that notes have rotational symmetry order 2. That means stems go up on the right, rotate them, now the stems go down on the left. That's the easiest way to think of it, that they rotate. Now the quaver doesn't quite work like that. If I rotate this, yes, the stem's correct, but the tail is wrong. Cross that one out. The tails should always go forward, should be pushing on, drawing your eye to the next note when you have quavers or semiquavers or demi-semiquavers. Now beams are only useful for quavers and shorter note values. You can beam them together, so it's effectively those tails joining up. Here's an example in 6/8. 6/8, if you remember, is 6 quavers per bar, but they're grouped like this. Ya ta 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 ta, ya ta 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 ta. There are 2 beats in each bar, and the way I've beamed these quavers conveys that. So I've grouped the first beat, those 3 quavers, and I've grouped the second beat with a beam. This example shows semiquavers. Again, the first 6 semiquavers are all beat 1, so I've beamed them all together. A double beam for a semiquaver, just like a semiquaver has a double tail, a group of semiquavers is a double beam. And I've grouped the second beat as well. Now here, I've got a mix of quavers and semiquavers. So the first note's a quaver. The next 2 notes have the double beam, so they're both semiquavers. The next one is a quaver again. So you can have a mixed group. Take a look at this example. It's not immediately so clear where the beat falls. I've got a quaver and a semiquaver that I've beamed together. Then a semiquaver rest and a loose quaver. Now that's beat 1. That's all beat 1, so I've not been able to connect that quaver to anything. Then we've got all the musical material for beat 2. I've beamed as much as I can. Actually, that's not quite true because you can beam across a rest. Look at this example. I think this is clearer. I've got 4 semiquavers and I've beamed them together. It just happens that one of them is a rest. But I think visually that's quite clear where beats 1 and 2 fall. And that's the main purpose of beams, is to make it clearer to read. Now, in piano music you might sometimes see this, where the stems and the beams are traversing from one stave to another. That's when a composer wants you to know that this is one musical idea, a kind of arpeggio flowing from one hand to the other, so he's beamed it all together. You'll never be asked to write that in a grade 5 theory exam, but you will see it in your piano music, and I think it's quite clear to interpret that. Now, back onto the subject of stems. Stems can go up or down. Take a look at these notes. The first note is low on the stave, so the stem goes up. The second note is high, so the stem goes down. The idea is that we keep things neat. We keep things drawn on the stave rather than sticking out. The rest typically is drawn in the middle, sort of as if it's a B, but of course it's a rest. Now the note B is neither high nor low, it's right in the middle. So for this note, gravity takes over and we do the stem going down. Take a look at some quavers that I've beamed together and let's work out whether the stems should go up or down. Now these first 4 notes are all low, so the stems go up. The second group of notes are all high, so the stems go down. That was easy. Let's make things a bit more complicated. Here we've got some notes in the middle of the stave. Take a look at the first group. It's a low note, an average note, a high note and a low note. So low note wins. We're going to do the stems going up. Now the second group, we've got average, high, low, high. high winds, so we'll do the stems going down. Notice that some of these stems have to be longer than normal in order to reach the beam. So our shortest stems will be 3 spaces long, some will be slightly longer. Take a look at this example. I've got low, average, high, average. So average wins, so gravity takes over, and we'll do the stem going down. Now, let's put all this into context. So here's a piece of music in simple time. I've beamed it very badly at the top, and I've beamed it very well at the bottom. You need to understand simple time. 2 beats per bar, 2 crotchets in a bar, or quavers beamed together in pairs, or semiquavers beamed together in 4s. The first beat of this bar at the top, I've done a quaver, then another quaver, but I've beamed that on, which is not clear at all. Whereas down below, the first 2 quavers, which comprise beat 1, I've beamed them together, then I've beamed the next notes together as beat 2. So I've made the beat groups clear. That is in essence what you have to do with beaming. Now there's a few special cases in simple time. If you're in 4/4, you don't necessarily have to split every beat. You can group beats 1 and 2 together. Do 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 do. We've got 4 quavers in a row, so I've beamed them together. I've not done that with the subsequent groups because I've got mixed notes, I've got semiquavers. I thought it was clearer to have each beat separate. Generally, each beat has a beam, but in that special case, you can beam them together. Similarly, in 3/4, generally I'm beaming each beat. But this first bar, because it's 6 quavers, I've just beamed them all together. I can still see that that's in 3/4 and I can see what I have to play. Now, let's move on to compound time. Here's an example of compound time beamed badly and beamed well. I've got to convey in my beams this idea of 3 quavers, ya-da-da, da-da-da. Now, I've not done that at the top. I've beamed them in pairs. It's as if I'm in 3/4. Whereas at the bottom, I've beamed them correctly for 6/8. 1, 2, 3 quavers, quaver and 4 semiquavers. That's a beat group. Now, rests sort of comes into this topic as well, working out where the beats should fall and making the music clear for the performer. Take a look at these examples. At the top, I've drawn some music in 3 beats per bar and I've drawn the rests properly. So I've got a dotted crotchet, that's beat 1 and a bit of beat 2. The quaver rest completes beat 2, then a crotchet rest on beat 3. Then I've got a crotchet, that's beat 1, a crotchet rest, that's beat 2, 2 quavers, that's beat 3. Then in the last bar, the quaver rest completes beat 1, then I've got beat 2, then I've got beat 3. That's how you should draw the rests when you're in simple time, when you're in 3/4. Now down below I've drawn 6/8. Here the rests are drawn very differently. So my dotted crotchet is beat 1. So then I've done a dotted crotchet rest, that is beat 2. Not like I did above with the split rests, but 1 beat. Then in the next bar, the crotchet and the quaver rest, that's beat 1. Then the quaver rest and the 2 quavers, that's beat 2. Then in the last bar, the quaver and 2 quaver rests, that's beat 1. The dotted crotchet rest is beat 2. Now these 2 pieces of music are sort of the same. I mean, if you got a robot to play them with no sort of sense of accentuation and pulse, mathematically they would be the same, but they're beamed differently and the rests are different because in our music we always want to convey this sense of where the beat is.
At the piano, play this melody twice, once reading the incorrect version and once reading the correct version. It should be much easier to read the correct version.
When you're composing, copying out, notating music, it's really important to get the beams right, because the beams guide the performer's eye. When I see a group that's beamed together, I know that's beat 1, then there's beat 2, then there's beat 3. It helps me navigate the music, particularly when I'm sight reading. Now, if you have a copy of this book, and I hope you have, there's More to Playing the Piano by David Hall, and you turn to chapter 21, all about beaming, you'll see an example of some music that's beamed badly, and then the correct version. Now, because I've tried to encompass every possibility, I've got triplets, dotted notes, really long stems, this has actually ended up being quite an ugly melody that's quite hard to play. So you might find this one actually isn't terribly easy to read. Why not try some of the exercises in the video you've just watched, where I've done some nice simple melodies. When they're beamed wrong, it's quite hard to work out the rhythm, but when they're beamed right, the rhythm should be much easier to play.